It's time and we have a quorum. Let's resume the hearing. Next, Mr. Gary Fan. Mr. Chairman, I have 3 questions. The first one is for one question is for Mr. Lomas and 2 questions for Dr. Wong. I will go to my first question first. Mr. Lomas, in paragraph 7 of the witness statement, starting from April 2013, you became the project manager. You were responsible for coordinating the different project management functions relating to the construction of the WKT, including construction interface and risk management. Now, in the independent board committee's meeting, in November 2013, the project team confirmed to the project director that there will be a delay in the completion date to 2016. So, Mr. Lomas, as the project manager, were you involved in making this confirmation? Why not? If you were not, why not? And if you were involved, now according to the Deputy Director of the Highways Department, Tam Hong Choi, when he came to give evidence here in October, he said that the highways, there was a cover-up of the critical information on the delays till 2016. That's why the government came to the wrong decision that the project delay didn't mean there would be delay in the completion date. So as a member of the project team, what did you do at the time, Mr. Lomas? Did you try your best to convince the then project director, Mr. Chow Tai-chung, to give the true picture or true report to the government, the electrical, and the public? That is, the delay, the completion should be delayed to 2016, which is a key piece of information.
Waiting for the interpretation to come through. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. The events really started in April 2013, as stated, when our 810A contractor presented a delay recovery measures programme, which, and it's been widely reported at the time, showed a mid-2016 completion date. It's also been widely reported that the then project director did not accept that, and we at the project team and the contractor were then tasked with going away to find solutions to mitigate that delay. As also highlighted in many reports, during the summer of 2013, the work on identifying the potential delay recovery measures was going on in parallel with the partial opening proposal. And the events leading up to the November 2013 discussions, I think, have been well documented in the project history and covered in the first IBC report, and then recently appended to the CEO's written statement. And at the time, the project team were focused on mitigating the delay that we were expecting at that time.
I'm not asking about the team, I'm asking me yourself. Were you involved yourself, and what did you do? You were just repeating facts already known to us. I'm talking about yourself. Can you answer the question directly, Mr. Lomas? It's not the team, it's you. Can you speak up, because some of the members couldn't hear you? Can you please speak up?
My role, my responsibility at the time was to look after a few of the contracts on the West Kowloon terminus and report the progress and the delays on the West Kowloon terminus. And as said, our reports through the monthly progress meeting were open and honest and transparent about the delays that were occurring at that time.
So at the time you did attempt to tell Chow Tai-chung that he should give the information to the government. He said he reported information, but Chow Tai-chung didn't accept it. Is that what you said? Is that what you meant?
Able to speak on what Mr. Chu did or didn't report to the government. My role, as I say, was to report through. I didn't have a direct reporting line to the then project director. My role was to report through the WKT contracts as part of the normal XRL monthly progress reporting, both internally and to government and other parties.
So as the project manager, how did you assess why at the time the projects director did not listen to you, and then he either covered up or did not report such critical information? What's your guess, Mr. Lomas?
Shouldn't be able to make a guess on why the PJD, the former PJD at that time, did or didn't report onwards the information. We were reporting, as I say, on a monthly basis, being very open and very honest about the delays to the project, and we're very focused on trying to mitigate those delays.
Well, I have only 4.5 minutes left, so now for Dr. Wong. In the witness statement, paragraph 5, before you took over as the project director in October 2014, you were not involved in the management of the project. But then in paragraph 91 of the witness statement, you said in no uncertain terms that you did not find that there were any employees at any time trying to withhold or cover up relevant information concerning the later the project from the government, the Legislative Council, or the public. Well, Dr. Wong, since you were not involved in the management of the XRI project for some time, on what factual basis did you make this statement in paragraph 91 of your witness statement? Dr. Wong, please. Thank you for the question. Starting from 2011, I was the project general manager of the Sha-Tin to Central Link. Every week there's a meeting of the project directors and managers. And then at the meeting we would discuss the progress and problems encountered for each railway project. So I knew more or less the progress of the XRL project at the meeting, and I knew what the difficulties were. I also knew that the project team tried their best to try to recover the progress. And so at the regular meetings, I was aware that the project team was trying its very best to overcome the challenges faced in the works project. So at the meeting, I understood they did not cover up any information in relation to the progress. Dr. Wong, are you referring after October 2014 when you took over, and that is the information reported to you there was no cover-up? Because before you were not at those meetings, right? We are talking about meetings after October 2014. I'm talking about starting from 2011 when I was the general manager for the Sha-Tin to Central Link project. The then project's director had meetings with us every week. All the general managers responsible for different projects would be at the meeting to report to the project director. So that's why at the meeting I heard the report of other general managers. Oh, you mean at the same meeting, in the same forum, at different times there would be discussion of the Sha-Tin to Central Link, the XRLs and so on? Yes, correct. In that case, my question for Dr. Wong is next. Whether there's something similar to on the Sha-Tin to Central Link, because you were the general manager of the Sha-Tin to Central Link. Now, the two projects had similar problems. That is, there was insufficient advanced site investigation. Eventually, there were problems with the ground conditions leading to project delays. So these were technical issues, and the MTRCL have always cited these reasons as its defense for the delays. So, Dr. Wong, for the two projects, the Sha-Tin to Central Link and the XLL, the reasons for the cost overrun and projects, were they similar to a large extent or to a small extent? And do you agree that the MTRCL has to take on so many railway projects at the same time? That's why for all these projects they had insufficient advanced site investigation. And that was a common problem of the project delays. Or it was a major technical problem, was it the case? Dr. Wong? For MTRCL projects, Sha-Tin to Central Link, XRL projects, and so on, we adopt the same management model and establish procedures in managing these projects. On investigation, I explained earlier about our investigation work. If necessary, I could repeat it. That is, for our investigation work, we go by the relevant guidelines of the government in carrying out site investigation. If we look at the information collected, and then this may be different than the actual situation, that cannot be avoided, because the site investigation findings would only give us the information at the investigation points. And then using this information, then we try to project the ground conditions. And during the works process, there could be discrepancies with these investigation findings. It could happen. Dr. Wong, on the discrepancies from the findings, could it be because the MTRCL is managing too many projects at the same time? That's why you couldn't cope, and so there were a large number of discrepancies. Yes or no? Can you just give me a straight answer? If you don't agree with me, you can say even if you are managing 5 or 10 railway projects, you still go by the established procedures and statutory procedures, and you are able to cope. You can just say that. For all the advanced works carried out, they are in accordance with our established guidelines. And when we do the investigation, or rather after we do the investigation, we will invite independent professional consultants to do an overall analysis before we could do the project design. How do you explain that for the XRL, which started in 2012, 5 years later, you still could not address the ground conditions because of insufficient site investigation? 5 years. Now, for the West Kowloon terminus in particular, is an underground station. There's a need to excavate a large amount of soil and rocks. And then there are also diaphragm walls here and there. So if there are unforeseen ground conditions, yes, that could happen. 5 years, excavation over 5 years, you should have completed in August 2015. So from start to finish, during the original program, you were not able to address the technical problems that should have been addressed during the advanced site investigation stage. Now, even though you have a professional team, you go by all the established and statutory procedures, you still could not do it, right? Please give short answers. Now, on engineering works, perhaps I could share with you some of my experience. For the ground conditions across the territory in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, compared to other places, has far more complex ground conditions. The ground conditions vary at different spots. For the WKT is an underground station. Well, we said we bore over 600 holes, average space of 14.4 meters during the investigation stage, as in line with the government's requirement, and professionals also agreed this is adequate investigation work. But then, for all the unfavorable ground conditions, they could only be reviewed upon excavation. And then when we find out about these conditions, then our project team tried very hard to find mitigation measures. So we are able to recover the delays.
I have a follow-up question. Perhaps in a second round, you said that starting from 2011, you participated in the general managers' meetings together with the project director. And according to your statement, you said that the team has not deliberately covered up information. But then the delay situation has not been reported to the Electrical Railway Subcommittee. So I have a specific question. Have you reported such delays to the board of the MTRCL? Chairman, thank you for your question. The project team submits reports regularly to the board. Well, what do you mean by regular? To my understanding, well, I've just been the project director for 1 year. For 8 to 10 times before the board meeting, there is always a report submitted to them. So they should know the delay situation, right? The board receives a report which sets out truthfully the progress of the works at the site. And also mitigation measures to recover delays are also set out. My question is very specific. So the board is fully aware of the delay situation, right? Chairman, I wasn't attending the board meetings, so I wasn't involved in the discussions. But you said you regularly report to the board. Yes, our report is submitted to the board. As what the IBC pointed out, there is room for further strengthening that reporting mechanism. Next one, Mr. Frankie Yik. I have several simple questions. Dr. Wong, at the outset, you said that this project comes with a lot of difficulties. We've heard from many witnesses already, and we believe that the MTRC has tried its very best to work on the project. Now, you are a professional engineer. Have you ever doubted that the original time schedule is unrealistic? Your personal professional judgment. I would like to hear from you on that. I will share my experience in the construction industry. For every major project, the works schedule is compiled based on the prevailing information then, including the environment in the construction sector and information collected from the site investigation. For the XRL project, the project is really very complex, and the requirements are also very high. So the timetable is rather tight. To my understanding, when we drew up the time schedule, actually that was vetted by independent professionals and experts. They are professional engineers, and they found the timetable to be feasible. And also during the tendering exercise, the experienced contractors told us that they could finish the works according to this prescribed timetable. So these, the judgment from a number of professionals. So we thought at that time that timetable was feasible but tight. Mr. Yik, Dr. Wong, I would like to ask you for your own personal professional assessment. How feasible was the timetable? But then Dr. Wong was saying that a lot of professionals were saying that it was doable but not easy. But you haven't answered my question. For you personally, have you ever doubted the feasibility of the completion date? I don't think you would answer me, so that's all right. Second question. At the outset, you said you emphasized the problem of labor shortage. For you and also Mr. Lomas, have you reminded your superiors of the impact brought about by labor shortage? Would that be a delay of the completion work as a result of labor shortage? During those several years, have you ever reminded your superior on that? Mr. Lomas?
As part of the monthly progress reporting, the labour figures, both planned and actual, are reported in that XRL monthly progress report, and the labour shortage is discussed at those meetings. And therefore, the ongoing labour shortage and the situation throughout the projects has been known about and has been reported on. But again, it's important also to talk about what we've done to try and mitigate those labour shortages, and that's also reported on in the monthly progress reports.
我哋都睇到啲報告，都知道你哋當。
I've read through the progress reports as well. I know that you have reported to your superiors. In your chief executive officer's statement, he also said that the labor shortage did have an impact on the works. Now, apart from reporting on the labor shortage situation, have you particularly mentioned to your superiors that the labor shortage will lead to delays in the project? Mr. Lomas.
I can't recall if I've put the discussions in those exact terms, but there are minutes available of the meetings. As we've said before, it's an industry-wide problem. It's widely known about. We report the actual labour figures against the planned labour figures on a monthly basis. There are discussions at the monthly progress meetings, and it will have been discussed at some, if not all, of those meetings.
OK， 我明白。嗱，咁即係你而家。
Understand you cannot recall now, then that's all right. Perhaps through the chairman, if the MTRCL can check your minutes and see if there are any reports saying that you have notified or reminded your superiors or the management team that labor shortage might lead to delays in the project. So can you supplement that information later on? When I answered the question on labor shortage just now, in fact, during the works period, the labor situation is getting the labor shortage is rather getting tight in those few years. We did discuss how to resolve this problem, as I said just now. So the MTRCL has doing more for the workers, for example, taking our insurance for the workers. Well, I would say that MTRCL is the first or second company to do so. So we were taking all sorts of initiatives to ease the labor shortage and try to attract new blood into the industry. Is this something, the labor shortage, something you have expected or not expected? Before the works commenced, around 2009 to 2010, there was a change in the environment. There were several factors, as I said, because some projects were their construction period were prolonged, so that driving up the demand for workers. You are working on several projects at the same time, right? Yes, the construction period for some has lengthened. Mr. Lomas just mentioned that you mentioned in your report the planned number of workers and actual number of workers, but the senior management might not fully grasp the meaning of these figures. For myself, I've received such reports all the time. The question is whether you have really alerted to the senior management that this is a serious problem and that it would affect the completion date. Have you really reminded your superiors? Or please go back and retrieve information and supplement that later. So can you go back and try to retrieve such information? Yes, Chairman, we can go back and see how we can respond to the request. So you don't have to go through all the documents. Well, if you have one document saying that you have reminded the senior management, then that's good enough. Mr. Michael Tan also has all along been concerned about something that you mentioned in your witness statement, paragraph 31 to 35. You said that because of the City Golf Club operations, you could not go to the site to do investigation. And you found a lot of boulders and core stones and so on. Are these located within the site of the golf club? I just would like to confirm with you on that. I wasn't involved directly in the XRL project at that time. For the site investigation work at the golf club, we try to do it as quickly as possible. So we did site investigation work at the golf club, but there was some distance between one investigation point and another, and so and ultimately there were discrepancies between the information we collected and the actual situation. Well, there was an interval of 14.4 meters between one hole and another. Well, I think this is quite a good distance already. In paragraph 31, you said that in particular, before taking possession of CGC, investigation of the site was only possible at the perimeter and car parking areas of the driving range. So you couldn't do a site investigation within the very central part of the golf club. Is that right? So I would just like to confirm whether the boulders and all that are really found in that central part of the golf club. 14.4 meters is the average distance, but it doesn't mean that it's exactly the distance between one hole and another. It's just the average figure. For the information collected from such holes, it doesn't necessarily represent the whole picture. So we have to, it will be only when we have, we're doing the excavation work what we learn of the whole picture. Now, I would still like to follow up. There was this big mass of granite. Is it within the central part of the golf club where no investigation has been done? Well, yes, part of it. Yes, the golf site covers where the granite is found, but the golf club is a very spacious area.
I have two more questions, Mr. Chairman. The Highways Department and the government consultant said in their statements that they kept reminding the MTRCL that project delays have been increasingly serious. Now, did Highways Department ever question the possibility of completing the works on time? Dr. Wong? Mr. Chairman, I was not a part of the project team, so on their meeting discussions content, I don't have the details. But in departmental communication, I understand that our project team had regular meetings with the Highways Department. There were also regular discussions about the challenges encountered and the mitigation measures required. The project team first conducted analysis and then submitted the measures to the project monitoring team for approval. You mean the mitigation measures? You actually mean the recovery measures? Yes, the DRMs. And then at the monitoring, the project monitoring committee, then there's the government representatives there too, the project control group that is, and then the DRMs will become part of the project, and then the Highways Department and us will continue to monitor the progress of works. So that's the process, what Dr. Wong described. My question is, when the Highways Department learned from the M&V consultant that there's persistent delays in projects and is building up, then did they ever question the MTRCL whether you could manage? That's just a straight question. So, Dr. Wong, please give a brief answer, short answer. Well, for every project, there will need to be solutions to challenges encountered. The project team has always tried to recover delays. When we encountered challenges, we hope to achieve the completion date. My last question, paragraph 89. You mentioned earlier reports. That is, the senior management of the corporations came to know about the issue in April 2014, as if to say that before April 2014, the senior management of the corporation was not aware of that. Could you confirm if this, agree if this is the fact? The reason why I asked this is because just now I asked you another question. The M&V consultants of the Highways Department kept reminding the Highways Department that the situation was worsening. And I asked whether the Highways Department ever questioned you, and you didn't actually give a straight answer. I just assume you knew. So you knew, and then what I don't get is how come the senior management did not know? It's like the chairman's last question. Dr. Ho, Wong, how come the senior management did not know about it? The report of the independent board committee is stated that on the reporting of progress and cost estimates, there was transparency and accuracy in the process. This has been confirmed in the IBC report, but at the same time, they agree there's room for improvement in the reporting mechanism. So can I take it to say that, that you do bear some responsibility then? Next, Ms. Claudia Mo.
Question for Mr. Lomas. Could you confirm what you said just now, that you had no direct reporting line or communication line to Mr. Chiu Tai Chong? But then, as far as you know, the fact is reports on works delays have been duly handed over to the board on a monthly basis. Is that what exactly you said?
Mr. Lomas.
If I might clarify, I didn't actually mention any reporting to the board because that wasn't a part of my role. What I said was that as part of my role, looking after some of the contract reporting on the XRL project, mainly at WKT, I would contribute to the progress reporting, in which we would report the progress, the delays, the challenges, the delay recovery measures that were in place. The reporting that I was involved in would get collated as part of the formal monthly XRL progress report, at which that would be discussed, and those reports were then reported onwards. But as I say, I didn't have a direct reporting line there.
Okay, yeah, okay. 我跟住係黃生嘅。
Next, my question is for Dr. Wong. The MTROCL kept saying there's a serious labor shortage, so it might give people the impression that you're just talking about construction workers, but actually we're also talking about professional technical staff and skilled labor, including EMI, skilled workers and so on. So you said here, you said it yourself that there's a serious labor shortage of the kind. And then you also said that you expect problems to persist or even become worse. And these challenges remain to be overcome. But then on the question of labor shortage, it's not something new. In the past decade or two, or now we all know about it. We could see, you could see the level of supply in the labor market, and only now you're saying that there's a serious labor shortage, blah, blah, blah. So as professionals, maybe was it the case that you did not ask enough questions at the time? Is it fair to the use of public money? Dr. Wong? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Member, for the question. For the labor market, when we put in place this project, the project team had regard to the prevailing conditions in the labor market in making assessments. But after works commenced, the labor market and the other external environments changed substantially. So there was a persistent shortage in the labor market. Of course, as managers of projects, when we encounter problems, we have to find ways to resolve them. Say in the past, what we did was to do recruitment sessions, hoping that we could bring back former construction workers, and we also provide life insurance. And then in the new contract, we require contractors to train new blood to join the industry. So with these measures, we hope gradually they will relieve the shortage and address the shortage in the labor market. But the thing is, the impression given by the MTRCL is that project delay is something normal. There are always unforeseen circumstances leading to project delay. But it does not mean, rather progress delay, but it does not mean project delay. But what we see now is there is substantial delay in the project as a whole. So would there be a problem with the MTRCL, the management in particular? Like last summer, the Independent Board Committee's report it was published. It said that Mr. Chow Tai-chong was suspected to or seemed to have not reported on the delays. Now, of course, Mr. Cho has left MTRCL. So the general impression you give to the Hong Kong people is at the time it was just your own people investigate your own, someone definitely covered up. But then Dr. Wong said with no uncertain terms that under no circumstances did anyone try to cover up anything. But since the report was published, you would have read about the comments in the community. Some said that you're just trying to make Chiu Tai-chong and Walter as the scapegoat. So you try to sacrifice these people to save someone else. Now, for this sort of accusations or criticisms, should I say, criticisms. Now, you are now the project's director now. Dr. Wong, how would you respond to that? Mr. Chairman, as I reported earlier, the IBC report and the IEP reports do not believe that the project team, the MTRCL or the government have tried to cover up in any way. It's the same when we take on any project. When we encounter difficulties or challenges, we will try to overcome the challenges so that we could recover progress. We put in place DRMs. And that's what we've been doing all along, and we're working very hard to do that. So hopefully we're able to recover lots the delays. Of course, in 2014, we found that the DRMs could not achieve that objective anymore. That's why we immediately report to the public the latest revised program. Now, I'm not asking how well the team worked together, how hard they worked together. They worked. I'm talking about the community views, in particular, some comments in the media. These are serious comments that they're trying to save someone up above. So J. Walter, Chiu Tai-chong were forced to quit. It's because you wanted to save the team now they have. So at the beginning, there was no truthful reporting of delay and whether there's a cover-up. You know, the fine line that could be debated a lot more. But here, names have been named. I want you to respond to the criticisms or the comments, whether there's a case of the company trying to save those on above. No, I don't see the relevance of your questions to the scope of our inquiry. We're talking about reasons and whether the MTRCL is trying to cover up anything. But as whether they're sacrificing someone lower down and in order to save someone above, then I don't see the relevance there. Because in the MTRCL's report said that Chiu Tai-chong did not truthfully report the delays. Now that's important. Now Chiu Tai-chong has left, so that's why people thought it has to do with trying to save the skin of someone else. I don't see why it's irrelevant. In the report, it says that Chiu Tai-chong did cover up. Perhaps can you refer to the relevant report? I think it was published in summer last year, July. The IBC report of the MTRCL. It was a report prepared by Frederick Mann, the current chairman now. Do you have any response to that report? Mr. Chairman, I cannot comment on articles cited or views expressed by others. No, this is not others. This is the report of your own company's independent board committee, Dr. Wong. But just now, the term was used that someone low down was sacrificed to save someone higher up. I understand Mr. Chiu Tai-chong retired early on personal grounds. Ms. Mo, I don't think he will answer your question. Do you have any other questions, please? Well, there's so little time left. I think I'll wait for the next round. Mr. Michael Tian. Oh, sorry. It's Mr. Tan Ka-Piu first. Mr. Tan Ka-Piu. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are many meetings today. I'm running around. So I don't know if my question may duplicate those asked earlier. If so, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll be wasting the time. Here we talk about the project team in charge of the actual project, Philco in particular. The MTRCRO is the project manager of the XRL. There have been a number of reports, there have been all these incidents, and you see the success and failure of your predecessor. As the project manager of the XRL, where could you do better? And what do you think was not done well enough in the past?
Dr. Wong. Chairman, thank you, member, for your question. As I said earlier, whether the project is MTRCL's own project or an entrusted project by the government, we have been abiding by the established systems and procedures in monitoring and managing the projects, which have proved effective. In our monitoring work, we are using the PIMS to manage the project to ensure that the project can be completed on time. The IBC report suggested certain areas for improvement. First is the reporting mechanism. They believed that we can strengthen the reporting mechanism. Second, we can establish an engineering or works committee which should directly report to the board. They should hold regular meetings and discuss with us the progress of each individual project, and if needed, the project team would be asked to propose solutions to address problems or to recover any delays identified. So this is what the IBC has suggested. So we're already following up on that. Which areas have failed, do you think? The project team has been working very hard all along, and the XRL project, it's an extraordinarily complex project. This is an underground station under the West Kowloon area. We need to do excavation work, and there are unforeseen circumstances, including obstacles. So these have added to the difficulties to the project. And also, can you be more direct? I don't want to interrupt you, but can you be more direct? Are there any areas where you think you've not been doing a good job, a proper job. I think the project team has done its best to overcome the challenges. So you are, well, let me ask questions on a specific example. We are concerned that in 2013-14, the reporting of the progress of works was a concern to us. You tried to say something, but you didn't say. And you said that it's important to maintain the target completion date in 2015. So I could not say that there will be a delay. Or I could not do that in November 2013 because we wanted to exert pressure on contractors to make sure that they complete the project on time. Now, you are the responsible person now, and you are a very experienced professional. Is this the right approach or not the right approach, Dr. Wang? Allow me to share my experience in this industry with you. Each project comes with its own uniqueness, its own challenges and difficulties. For every engineer in the project, including the project director, project manager, and so on, they have to face up to these problems and try to resolve them. In the course of doing so, everybody might have different opinions. And what's most important is to try to resolve the problems in view of the circumstances at that time and try to catch up with delays. The decision made then was a professional decision, and we cannot say whether it's a right or wrong decision. Now, in hindsight, even the third party will not be able to fully grasp what happened then. To my understanding, the project team has exercised its best endeavor then to try to recover the delays. Well, actually, many measures implemented have been able to recover certain delays. Dr. Wang? So in other words, from a professional point of view, well, say time, if we went back to 2 years ago, you would still do the same. And that is, at the end of 2013, you were still asking the government to withhold the reporting of the progress of works and try to exert pressure on contractors. If you were the project director, then you would do the same. Is that right? Chairman, I could not give you my personal views on this issue. I can share with you this thinking, though. The project team has proposed certain measures, but then some people have alleged that they are overconfident or over-optimistic. But their doing so is not a cause for the delay. That would only affect the reporting time. Mr. Tan Ka-piu. I really would like to find out, in terms of your relationship between you and the government and you and the contractor, so has that been the pattern all along? As long as I can cover up the information, and then I would be able to exert pressure on contractors. Is that always been the approach that you have adopted, and is it a professional approach? To my understanding, the project team and the contractors have done their utmost to try to complete the works on time. So, in other words, with hindsight, you still believe that this decision, and that is not disclosing the information then, and in order to exert pressure on contractors, this is not a wrong decision. Are you still of that view now? I can't comment on the remarks of the member. Sorry. I think it's a professional judgment. Maybe a doctor prescribed the wrong medicine because of the wrong diagnosis he gave, and perhaps this is due to some other reasons. So you think this is a professional judgment, this is not a question of integrity, is that right? Chairman, I can only repeat that the project manager has all along worked very hard to try to complete the works as early as possible and on time. Well, no one will doubt the efforts of the project team, but Mr. Tang's question is whether this is an issue on a professional judgment and not an issue of integrity. Is that right? Chairman, I really don't see the relevance of this professional judgment to our discussions. Now, if this is an issue of integrity, then that has to do with the governance of a corporation, especially the senior management, how they view their management style, whether they should come clean and open in information dissemination. And if it is a professional judgment, then we would think that might be a point to a problem in some professional practices or what. So if you can't give an answer now, then that will be recorded. We have our own views. Now, in paragraph 28 of your witness statement, since the works has started, the construction of WKT has faced significant challenges and delays. From 2010 to June to 2013, there have been 6 half-yearly progress reports submitted to electrical, but then such significant challenge has never been mentioned. But then here you say that you have all along been facing significant challenges and delays. Why? Is that the case? Perhaps you are overconfident, you are over-optimistic, and you think that you can still cope with the construction of WKT and that you will be just focusing on the tunnels at that time. If we encounter different challenges, unforeseen, unfavorable conditions, we will try to work together with the contractors to resolve problems in progress of works. So we adopt the same approach both for the tunnel and also the WKT. Next one, Mr. Michael Tan. There are 2 diagrams here. Can we make a copy to our colleagues and also the MTRCL team? Can you not time it now? Well, let's have the diagrams distributed first. Chairman, I think you should make a ruling on whether you should time me after or once I have started speaking. Now I'm distributing the diagrams. Chairman, there are 2 diagrams here, and you can take a look. The first one is chopped by MTRCL, so it's from MTRCL. And one is November 2013, and the other dated May 2014. For the one on November 2013, they came to the Legislative Council. This diagram was presented. The paper says that the North Terminus, well, the excavation has already been down to B4 level, and is now the works are now going up. So that is the bottom-up approach. So that gives the impression that in November 2013, the North, Station North will adopt the bottom-up approach, and they've already reached the B4 level. So if that is the case, and you're adopting a bottom-up approach, you've already reached B4, and then you would already have addressed all the problems in excavation. And what you need to do, what remains to be done, is to build the structure above. And it's difficult to estimate. I mean, it's easy to estimate the time to construct the superstructure. So that's presented then. Hi, just to say hi, Mr. Lomas.
I think last year, April 28th, you were the one that received us on site, all right? So for the remainder of this session, I have to speak in Chinese. You have to rely on translation. I hope you understand. 咁當日咧，我哋4月28號去到嘅時候咧。
Okay, on the 28th of April, Mr. Lomas greeted us, and that was a big surprise to us once we stepped into the site. And we found that there was still excavation work going on at B4 level. And after that, there was another paper. In May, there was another paper with another diagram. And it says that at the northern part of the station, there would be the approach of top-down being adopted. So at the north station, at the north part, and 100,000 cubic meters of rocks had to be excavated, and so on. So I would like to ask Dr. Wong first. November 2013, this was a diagram submitted by you. At that time, maybe this is also the information available to the government. And you said that you would take the bottom-up approach, and so the government would think it's easy for you to really catch up or recover the delay. So that's why perhaps a J-Water used this information to convince Anthony Leung that delays could be recovered. So we are already at B4, and we're adopting a bottom-up approach, and we could believe that you could catch up the delay. Now, Dr. Wong, my question for you is this. When MTRCL submitted documents to us then, or to the government, why didn't you submit the diagram dated the May 14 and explain that for the situation in the North Station in November 2013, you already just reached B2 and you haven't resolved the 100,000 cubic meters of rock underneath. And if were going by the rate of excavation, well, you couldn't complete or commission the project in 2015. So why didn't you submit this paper to explain the real situation? And the real challenge came from the top-down approach. And then there was this mass of 100,000 cubic meters of granite.
Can you explain? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From what I understand, all the works progress reports are regularly submitted to the Highways Department. The Highways Department. Dr. Wong, please answer my question directly. In November 2013, the MTRCL should know that it's not there's more than the diagram just submitted. Not everything is from bottom up, that everything is gone down to B4, but rather there's one section that adopted a top-down approach and is only at B2. Why didn't you give us the diagram then? Did you try to cover up something from or hide something from the senior management? Let him answer my question. You haven't asked all the questions? No, I haven't. Then my question was, how come you didn't provide the plan to us then? What was the reason? Because the middle management already submitted it to the senior management, maybe. Then Chu Tai-chong sat on it and did not pass it on further up. Now, I would ask Mr. Lomas first, but I'm asking you first now. Dr. Wong? As I said, I was not a part of the project team at the time, but from what I understand, all the reports were regularly submitted to the Highways Department. The Highways Department also shared the report with the M&V consultant. Was there this plan then? No, now looking back, was there this plan then? Mr. Chairman, I was not on the project team, so I could not answer this member's question. We definitely did not cover up any information on progress. Well, Dr. Wong, then it's odd. You couldn't tell me now whether you submitted this plan, right? Because you weren't there. But at the same time, you said there's no cover-up to speak of. Now, that's not possible. You say that there's not a single person in the MTRCL. Now, I'm sure not the whole MTRCL was trying to cover up something. But you said if there's no single person trying to cover up something in the MTRCL, then you should be able to tell me now whether this plan was submitted at the time, and if it wasn't, why. Actually, it's straightforward. Even if you submitted the plan then, now the electrical wouldn't trust you, the government wouldn't trust you, because there's a whole section that's from top down. It hasn't actually reached before. We're talking about 100,000 cubic meters, correct? Dr. Wong, if you were not involved, I don't think you should jump to conclusion to say that whether there was cover-up or not, since you were not involved. Now, in my evidence today, all of my evidence today, I'd like to say that I understand our project team was aware of these challenges. But you were not a part of the project team, Dr. Wong, at the time. Were you? No, I'm not. I wasn't. Then how could you be so sure that there was not a single person in the whole of the MTRCL trying to cover up? Mr. Chairman, as I said, every week I had meetings with the project directors, but it's not possible for you to know everything in such a meeting. No, Mr. Chairman, let's not worry about Dr. Wong. I'm sure the public will form their own judgment. I think Dr. Wong was really jumping to conclusion. Now, can I ask Mr. Lomas the same question? At the time when we came to the site visit, I asked you immediately, how come there was still one huge section that hasn't reached before? Remember? Because in November, we were told that almost everything had reached the B4 level. And then 1 month later, on the 28th of April, when we came to visit, we were all taken aback. There was one section that's not been touched, the north section, that is. Do you remember at the time you told me, yes, it's true, there's a lot of rock underneath which could not have been foreseen because there was no chance to do any investigation then. So you did tell me that it was only in 2010 you gained entry to possess the site on where the golf club was, and before 2020, that is north, in the north to the Jordan Road side, there was no investigation, so you didn't know there was so much rock underneath. Did you remember saying that?
For that question, I can't remember verbatim what I said. I do certainly remember a site visit, and I was one of the team involved in the site visit. And I remember particularly stood and looking and having a discussion about the remaining rock excavation at B4. As regards the two diagrams the honourable members just tabled, I suspect that they are part of the papers presented to the Railway Subcommittee. Now, I wasn't personally involved in the production of those Railway Subcommittee reports, and I wasn't at the meetings.
You said at the time why the project was progressing so slowly is because at the beginning there was not sufficient site investigation, because before 2010, when the golf club site was taken over, there was no sufficient site investigation then. Did you not remember saying that to me?
Recall verbatim what we discussed at that time. As we've said earlier, we did site investigation in 2008.
Okay.
In that case, I can tell Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lomas did complain to me at the time that we only knew very late, and by the time we knew, they hadn't actually reached the stage of doing excavation. But of course, he was not responsible for the paper submitted to the LESCO earlier in November. Now, okay, Mr. Lomas, you did not recall you said that to me, but when did you know that about this top-down approach, this 100,000 cubic meters? it would most likely cause the delay of the completion date of 2015, that there would be no commissioning in 2015. When did you find out about that?
The end of the translation there. When do we know about the rock in the North Top? As stated, we did some site investigation during the first entrustment agreement, and we did further site investigation once we gained access to the golf club area, as you mentioned. What we were also able to do once the foundation contractors came on board was use the information that they were getting from the pre-drilling of their foundation locations to make a more accurate prediction of the rock under that North Top down area.
當時就係你都係咁同我講㗎嚇。
Yes, you said that to me at the time too. So for the majority of the accurate rock assessment was done after 2010, correct?
We did an assessment, we did an interpretation based on the information we had at the time, and then when we got more information from the further site investigation and from the...
我係問呢啲大部分係咪10年之後？
I'm asking whether the bulk of the information was before or after 2010. That's critical.
I don't have those figures with me, but they're...
咁你個人幾時先知？
When did you find out yourself that there were this 100,000 cubic meters of rock? When did you find out personally? When? Yourself?
Certainly when I started on the project.
年幾月
？2011, July. There was always a body of rock to be excavated under the North Top down area.
OK， 即係話11年你已經知道下邊有10萬立方米嘅。
So in 2011 you knew there were 100,000 cubic meters of rock that had to be excavated. Now you knew in 2011, did you report to Chiu Tai Chong?
I said to a...
咁你講咗俾邊個聽咧？
Who did you tell?
Generally known within the project team, it was reported...
即係成個 project team.
So it's the whole project team. In 2011, it knew there were these 100,000 cubic meters of rock. And then in 2011, when the government came to LASHCO to seek funding, they did not know. Is that right? Because you only found out afterwards, right? Now, you possessed the golf course slides in 2010. Only then you did the investigation for this section, and you only knew afterwards, right?
Comment on what the government did or didn't know.
唔係 government. No.
No, I'm not talking about a government. I'm talking about a project team. The project team, after 2011, did a more detailed site investigation along Jordan Road. Only then you knew there were all these rocks. That means before then you did not know. So my question is whether you reported to your seniors, or did you just find out among yourself and that's it? Did you report it?
The amount of rock that exists within that North Top down area, the interpretation of the rock head profile was increased. It was made better, shall we say, when we had more information, when we were able to get into the site. Certainly it was known about when I came onto the project in 2011, and it was known that...
呢個你解釋咗啦，真真正正嘅石況。
Yes, you did explain. It was only in 2011, after you did more investigation, you knew exactly about the rock condition. So my question was whether you reported it to up above. If you did, then I find it strange that in November 2013, when Dr. Wong came to LASHCO, not a word was mentioned. It's only when we visited the site, when we found out, it was only later than the following year that this new plan was provided. So that's the key. That is, Mr. Lomas and your team, you knew that this would be a huge challenge. It would be very difficult to do. But then when you reported up to a certain level, it was stopped there, so there was no further reporting upwards. Dr. Wong, you couldn't answer the question because at the time you were not involved. So I'm asking Mr. Lomas now. You told your senior management that the rock conditions were a lot more complicated, did you?
Your superior.
Forgive me, I'm waiting for the translation to come through. The amount of rock was well known throughout the project team. It formed part of the tender documents for the 810A tender, which was issued in 2011. And it was widely known. It's not a...
Okay, 明白啦，收到。你
Yes, got it. Now, you said just now the amount of rock, the complexity of the ground condition, etc., were widely known among project group. And that was in 2011, right? Thank you. So, Chairman, so it's straightforward. That means in 2011, when they came to LegCo for funding, they said they did a lot to comply with the so-called international standards. And now you heard it from Mr. Lomas. For the project team, the bulk of the information was only known after the site possession in 2011. So they only found out then. And I think before, I think it was Mr. Leung, Lincoln Leung, who said that definitely there's not a case of insufficient site investigation. So that's a major problem. Today I just proved that the project team actually knew about it, and there's a major difference in the timing when they knew. Second round, not the second round. Deputy Chairman, you have questions in the second round. 3 minutes then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question about investigation. Dr. Wong kept saying that the investigation was done entirely in accordance with the government's requirements. Can I ask whether the MTRCL has the duty that if you follow completely the requirements and if you have not done enough, then shouldn't you do more? That's a straightforward question. Just answer yes or no. And another point about the IEP's report, it seems that Dr. Wong did not agree because the IEP's report said that the MTRC did not have an integrated master program. Now, apart from this point on the IEP's report, are there any other areas that you don't agree to, Dr. Wong?
Chairman, let me repeat what I said about site investigation on this project. Site investigation will enable us to understand the ground conditions. The information collected from each individual hole will only represent the situation in that hole. The West Kowloon terminus covers an area of 11 hectares, and the holes are spaced 14.4 meters apart from each other, well, apart from the golf club. After we gained access to the golf club, we continued to do entire investigation in that area. Well, Chairman, he said that he would comply with the government guidelines. Would they be doing more apart on top of what the government required? I think we are doing something which is way above the government requirements. You are doing more, right? Yes. Second, IEP reports. Are there any other areas or suggestions which you don't agree with? Some suggestions in that report are similar to those in the IBC report. Apart from the integrated master program, we have different views on that. Well, you are just disagreeing with the mention or the suggestion on that. Apart from that, you are agreeing with the other suggestions, right? Well, we agree with the facts set out in the report. So I would like to thank Dr. Wong. Can I ask a quick question in the second round? You mentioned about unforeseen circumstances. For example, the granite in the WKT. And also it's the same, applies to the Shatin Central Link. There were archaeological finds in that site too. So these are the unforeseen circumstances. Now, for all these unforeseen circumstances, Dr. Wong, would you think that the government should bear some responsibility for that? Because the government says it's doable after doing their advanced works. Do you think the government should bear a greater responsibility with what we are seeing today? Do you think the government should take a greater responsibility? i.e. the government has not made things clear before asking the MTRCL to proceed with the project? Dr. Wong? The government and the MTRCL share common goals on this project, and we would like to work to schedule and to the budget. Okay, thank you, Dr. Wong and Mr. Lomas, for attending the hearing today. I hope that I will not have to invite you back some other time, but if that is necessary, we will do so. So thank you very much for coming today. Thank you. So members, it's time for internal meeting.